Welcome to IPA Talk. I'm Brian Schwartz with Allison Maley, and it is time again for our annual legislative preview. But Allison, the legislature's in full movement right now,
That's
correct?
Right. Yep.
And on February 19th, the governor gave his budget address.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's in the budget for education?
Sure. So I think maybe the most interesting thing that came out of the budget address yesterday was this idea of putting some money aside in reserve for if and only if the tax, the tax amendment were to pass in November. The legislature could come back and reappropriate some extra money for K-12 education, higher education, a new cadet class for the Illinois State Police, and several other line items within the budget. So I think the thing, though, that is concerning maybe for all of us is that the amount that's appropriated without that tax amendment is $200 million extra dollars for the evidence-based funding formula.
And that's considerably less than the current fiscal year.
Right. Well, it's less than what is statutorily required as a minimum, which is $350. So, as we all know, that the legislature, just like in Congress, has the power of the purse. So I think the legislature is, already kind of taking a look at how they can make sure that that is whole and meets the statutory requirement for at least $350.
Sure. Well, certainly the graduated income tax is very important to the governor. So maybe a little pressure on the legislature, a little pressure on the people to go out and vote for that.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So one of the other things that we've obviously been following closely is the change to the rules dealing with timeout and restraint. And also on February 19th, seems to be
big day.
A big day, the State Board of Education passed their permanent rules, correct?
Right.
And can you just walk us through a little bit about the process that will have to go through before it goes into effect?
Right. So the State Board approved their proposed permanent rules earlier this week, and so they will go back to the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules, which is made up of legislators. So once that is approved at the JCAR level, then they will go into effect.
Okay, and we're fairly happy with the changes made by the State Board.
Yeah.
Student restraint will still be allowed when the student is a threat to himself, herself, or others.
Right.
Timeout will be allowed when the student is an imminent threat, which is a subjective term. But I think most importantly for us with the timeout, if the adult feels that they are threatened, they'll be able to leave the room and remain within 2 feet visual contact with the student. So to protect staff and students as well.
Yeah.
Okay. And the training requirement remains?
It remains in the proposed rules. So it's an 8-hour training minimum for any staff that would be involved in those sorts of things. I think maybe some districts may decide that that is appropriate for everyone within the district, just in case, and others may just kind of decide who might be appropriate, most appropriate person to have to go through that training.
Sure. So 8 hours of annual training for everyone who deals with kids in a timeout or restraint.
Correct.
Not necessarily everyone.
Right.
Okay. Great. And again, those will not go into effect until passed by JCAR, so we're still dealing with the emergency rules presently.
Right, and the other important thing to remember too is there's still legislation pending to completely prohibit seclusion, or in this case, isolated timeout for any reason. And there was a recent amendment that would sort of defer the physical restraint law to whatever the rules are that ISB has approved, whether they might change now or in the future. So that legislation is still pending. We're hoping to still have more discussions with those legislators that are sponsors, and we'll see what happens from there.
So definitely a changing target. We want to make sure we're up to date.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I did notice from your legislative reports that there are a number of other things going on in the legislature as well.
Right.
What are you paying close attention to?
Yeah, so I think I pulled out just a few examples of some new curricular mandates. So a lot of these are, what I think the legislature affectionately calls a unit of instruction. So I think because we're not designating, you have to spend a semester on this or a class period on this, it seems insignificant, but oftentimes these are significant uses of time and resources to accomplish. So,
sure. And a unit of instruction would be left up to the
to
school
the school
district
district,
to
right?
determine.
Exactly.
Correct.
So things, just for example, so we've got human trafficking in grades 6 through 12, family and consumer science in grades 6 through 8, mandatory Spanish language instruction in all grades, and then in high school, teaching students about the process of naturalization to become a citizen. In addition to that, besides sort of curricular mandates, there's a mandate pending for required play or recess, I guess, if you will. So 60 minutes each day in grades K through 8. That could be broken up over 15 minutes apiece, but, and we've seen a recess mandate in the past.
Sure.
I think it's interesting. There was some conversation on our IPA Connect just recently about districts moving away from or adding to recess at the elementary school levels. So we'll be seeking more input from our members as we go forward.
Sure. And I know one of the things that we've been concerned about for a while is the number of mandates and the number of training required for staff.
Right.
Certainly all well intended,
Sure.
certainly all very important, but there are only so many hours in the day, so
Right.
many days within the school year.
Exactly. Well, and that's kind of circling back to the mandated training and the proposed rules. Myself and some other colleagues with other management groups have been looking at all of the mandated trainings for all school staff to see how we can maybe streamline those. Maybe some of them could be annual upon licensure, and then annual after that, and then let's see if we can figure out what maybe can be happening at a less frequent time period going forward.
So keep the legislature's intent, but maybe a better use of time.
Right.
Terrific.
Yep.
Anything else going on in the state legislature?
The filing deadline has already passed for the House and the Senate, so of course there's always amendments that could be posted, but for the most part I think everything that's out there is out there for right now. So we'll be keeping everyone updated on new bills as they get posted to committees.
Great. And I know you put out a weekly legislative update.
Right, exactly.
And when is it too early to look ahead to adjournment? When's the proposed adjournment date?
I mean, it's always May 31st,
May 31st.
so fingers crossed.
Okay, be here before you know it. So thank you. For Allison Maley, I'm Brian Schwartz, and this has been IPA Talk.
Thank you again for joining us for this IPA Talk. For all related information and links, be sure to check out the description below. My name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. If there's anything that the IPA can do for you, don't hesitate to check us out on the web at ilprincipals.org. Take care.